X to the fourth is correct. If you got it right, remain standing. If you didn't, sit down. But if you get the other one right, you can stand up again, okay? Good. No one's, okay, good. See, did you guys do this rule? How many people actually wrote it out? You don't need to do that, okay? So you could, that's why these rules are nice. You could just subtract these, okay? Now, what about B? Who's got that one? How about, go ahead.
1 over x to the fourth.
1 over x to the fourth is correct. Isn't? I'm sorry. There you go.
All the rest.
Oops. There you go. Okay. Did you get that? All right. Then let's move on to C. So because you get 4 minus 8, right? Which is negative 4, right? You get x to negative 4, 1 over x to. Who has C? How about Sarah? Did you get C? What did you get? Oh, sorry. Then the other Sarah. 1 over 25 is correct. Oops. And then you get to see D. Sorry. And D is 1. Yes? Did you all put 1 for D? Because, by the way, x to the 0 power. Why is x to the 0 power 1, by the way? Don't you get x to the 0 power? Don't you get 8 minus 8? 0? Why is x to the 0 power 1 then? Yeah. Do you do 0 times x? No. So those of you that got 1 as the answer, because that's right. How'd you get 1? Because I got x to 0. Why is x to 0 1 though?
Anything.
Yes.
Because if you actually write it out.
If you actually write it out.
It's x over x like 8 times.
Excellent. When in doubt, you write it out. So you get x, 8 x's on the top, 8 x's on the bottom. They cancel out. You just get 1. So turns out, guess what? Anything to the 0 power is 1. Did you guys know that? But there's one exception. When is it not 0? Yeah. Yeah, 0 to the 0 power is 0. It's undefined. But yeah, anything to the 0 power except 0 is again what? 1. So we're gonna talk about that in a minute. Okay, then what about E? Who has E? Raise your hand. What did you get for E? Stefan. It can't be simplified. No one wrote x to the first. Don't you do this 3 minus 2 and x to the first? No, you're right. You can't be simplified. Why not? Leah?
Because the rule requires the base should be the same.
Excellent. The rule requires the base must be same. You can't just subtract the exponents. Does that make sense? So a lot of you got it right. Very good. Sit down. Good job.
Did you get a prize?
Yes, you get a prize. No, it's feeling good about you. All right, here we go. So, guys, listen. What I want to do is I want to talk about this right here. Why is x to 0 power 1? Well, we sort of talked about this, but let me show you. You don't have to write this down, but hold on. Just take a look at it. So I want to talk about, guys, quickly, why. So, oh, actually, write this down. So this is our fifth fact. X to the 0 power is, again, 1, except when x is 0. You can't have x as 0 because it's be undefined. And I'm going to show you why this is true in a minute. Okay, so write this down. Up here now. Look, let me explain to you why. Okay, so first of all, how many people know that x to the 3rd power means x times x times x? Yeah? Okay, good. Viviana, what does then x to the 2nd power mean? X times x. Now, do you see how we decrease the exponent from 3 to 2? When you do that, what's happening to actual value of this x? What are we doing from x times x times x to x times x? What happened? What's happening as we go from x to 2nd to x to 3rd to x to 2nd? What is it that we're doing here? What do we do to the x times x times x so it became x times x? Anybody? Yes, sir.
X times x times x over s.
Say it again.
Put x to the 3rd.
Yeah. Right. So what I'm saying is, do you see a pattern? What am I doing? Okay, let's write x to the first here. Well, that means you're going to have a new 1x, right? So what did we do to x times x times x so it became x times x? We what do we do to this top one so that it becomes x times x? Yeah, we divide by x. Do you see the pattern? So look, guess what? When I divide x times x, which is x squared, if you divide this by x, guess what you get? Don't you just get x? Isn't that right? Are you following? Yeah. Now, guess what then? What comes next? You got x to the third, x to the second, x to the first, and you're going to have x to 0. Guess what it means when you have x to 0? It means x divided by x. Does that make sense? Do you see why it becomes 1? Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, so as we decrease the number of exponents by 1, you're basically dividing the previous one by the base. So guess what happens if I have, now what comes next? X to the third, x to the second, x to the first, x to 0. Now we have x to the negative 1. So guess what? What are we going to do? 1, we're going to divide it by x. You see why it becomes 1 over x. Does that make sense? No? What's 1 divided by x, guys? Isn't that 1 over x? Dividing by x is same as what? Multiplying by the reciprocal. So it's 1 over x. Isn't that right? Does that make sense? Okay. Yes? Okay, what comes next then? We got x to the third, x to the second, x to the third, x to 0, x to the negative 1. Then we have x to the negative 2, which is then what? 1 over x. Why? Why is it 1 over x squared? Because you're basically... Do we not understand this? You don't get this? Do you see the pattern? Okay, if you don't get, let's try with just numbers. Look, 3 to the third power is 3 times 3 times 3, right? What would then 3 to the second power mean? 3 times 3. Didn't we just divide the top one by 3 so it becomes 3 to the second? So let's go then 3 to the first. Guess what? It just means 3 to the first, right? Then guess what? What comes next? 3 to the 0, which means how do you go from 3 to the first to 3 to the 0? You just have to divide it by 3. What's 3 over 3? 1. Do you see why anything to the 0 power is 1? It's basically dividing the number by itself. Yes? And let's do one more time. Then what will be 3 to the negative 1 power be? 1 over 3 because you're dividing by 3. Does that make sense? And we could keep going. So guess what? What would x to the negative 1 power be? X to the negative 1 power, x to the negative n, I mean. X to the negative n will be 1 over x to the n. What about 3 to the negative n power? Yeah? 1 over 3n. 2 to the n. Does this make sense? Do you see why x to the 0 power is 1 and 3 to the 0 is 1? Yes? No? Any question? So if you could do this example then you could apply all the, and you have learned all the rules that we sort of talked about. Almost all of them. So if they ask you to simplify this, first of all, what are you going to do? Separate them into 3 different fractions. Can you tell me how to do that, Austin? Times. That's correct. This is what you get. Would you not agree, guys? Now, can you apply all the rules that we learned so far? Okay, go ahead, everybody try. See what you get. If you could do this, that means you understood what we just talked about today, okay? So did you all get this 7 times 5? Did you subtract the exponents? How many people got 5/8 times x negative 2, y to the 0, z to the 5th? Raise your hand. Could I leave it this way? No, because what I have to do is I have to then rewrite this as 1 over x squared, right? And do you see how I get, how many people raise your hand if you got 5 z to the 5th over 8x to the 2nd? Very good. Now, did you have to write the restriction? Yeah, because it didn't say anything. So guess what? X, Y, Z can't be 0. But on your homework, I think it's going to say all denominator, is positive. Here's your homework for tonight. There you go. Okay.